My name is Viola Wilson, and at 63 years old, I never expected to feel like an unwanted outsider in my own family. For years, my daughter-in-law, Kimberly, has been slowly pushing me out of my son Andrew's life. But when she organized a New Year's trip and told me there wasn't enough space for me, because it's for young people anyway, something inside me finally broke. Then I saw the social media photos showing my entire family there, plus all of her relatives, including her elderly grandparents. I didn't say a word, just took action. Before I tell you what happened after I was excluded from yet another family gathering, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe if you've ever had to teach someone a powerful lesson about family loyalty. 5 years ago, I lost my husband Jack to pancreatic cancer after 38 beautiful years of marriage. We met in college, built a life in Boston, where I became an elementary school principal and raised our only son, Andrew. Jack's death left an enormous hole in my life, but I took comfort in my close relationship with Andrew, who called me almost daily during that difficult time. Andrew was always a sensitive, thoughtful boy growing up. As an only child, we shared a special bond. Every Sunday, even through his teenage years, we would make pancakes together using Jack's special recipe. When he left for college, he would still call home twice a week, telling me about his classes and friends. He studied business at Northeastern University, which is where he met Kimberly during his junior year. Their romance was a whirlwind. Within 6 months, they were inseparable. Kimberly was studying marketing, and from the first time Andrew brought her home for dinner, I could see she was ambitious and driven. She had perfectly highlighted blonde hair, wore designer clothes even as a student, and spoke confidently about her career plans. I admired her determination, though. I noticed she rarely asked questions about our family or showed interest in our traditions. She's just focused on making a good impression, Andrew assured me when I mentioned it. She's actually really warm once you get to know her. I wanted to believe him. When they got married 3 years ago in an elaborate ceremony that Kimberly's parents mostly paid for, I tried my best to be a supportive mother-in-law. I offered to help with wedding preparations, but Kimberly politely declined most of my suggestions, saying they were a bit outdated. I stepped back, not wanting to be the interfering mother-in-law that so many jokes are made about. After the wedding, I made numerous attempts to bond with Kimberly. I invited her for lunch, suggested cooking lessons when she mentioned wanting to learn how to make Andrew's favorite dishes, and offered to take her shopping. Each time she would accept with a tight smile, but frequently cancelled at the last minute due to work emergencies or prior commitments she had forgotten. When we did spend time together, Kimberly would make comments that stung, but were subtle enough that responding would make me seem oversensitive. "This house has such a retro charm," she said once, looking around the home Jack and I had lovingly maintained for decades. "Have you ever thought about updating it? Those curtains are very 1990s. Another time, when I showed her the quilt I had made for their wedding gift, she said, "It's sweet that you still do crafts like this. Most people just buy things now, but I guess that's how your generation shows love. Meanwhile, I noticed Andrew calling less frequently. When I would reach out to him, he often seemed distracted or in a hurry. If I mentioned getting together, he would check with Kimberly first, and plans would often change at the last minute. Kimberly's schedule is really demanding, he would explain. Her career is taking off, and I need to support her right now. I understood ambition. I had been a working mother myself, balancing my career as an educator with family life. But I never made my parents or in-laws feel like afterthoughts. Still, I kept these concerns to myself, not wanting to cause problems in their marriage. Financially, I was comfortable. Jack had left a substantial life insurance policy. Our house was paid off, and we had always been careful with investments. I had my retirement funds from the school system and some additional savings. Andrew knew this, and occasionally he and Kimberly would drop hints about how helpful it would be if I could assist them with a down payment for a house or invest in a business idea Kimberly had. Over the past year, a pattern emerged. I would hear about family gatherings after they happened. A weekend barbecue at my brother's house. A birthday celebration for my niece. A summer beach day with cousins. Each time Andrew would have an excuse for why I wasn't invited. It was very last minute, Mom. I thought you had your book club that day. It was just a small thing, nothing special. But social media told a different story. These were planned events with many family members present. I was being deliberately excluded, but I continued to smile and pretend it didn't hurt. I didn't want to be the bitter older woman complaining about her daughter-in-law. I wanted peace in the family, even at the cost of my own feelings. As November arrived, I looked forward to the holiday season. Despite the growing distance, our family had always maintained strong traditions around Thanksgiving and Christmas. I spent days preparing for Thanksgiving dinner, cooking all of Andrew's favorite dishes, and setting the table with my mother's china. I invited Andrew and Kimberly, of course, but also my brother's family and some close friends who had no relatives nearby. Kimberly arrived with her parents, an unexpected addition, though I welcomed them warmly. Throughout the evening, Kimberly dominated the conversation with stories about her work achievements and her parents' recent luxury cruise. Somehow, the seating arrangement left me at the opposite end of the table from Andrew, making it difficult for us to talk. As dessert was served, I overheard Kimberly enthusiastically discussing plans for a New Year's trip with my nephew Jason. We found this amazing luxury cabin in Vermont, she was saying. It has a hot tub overlooking the mountains and is right near the ski resort. It's going to be the perfect way to ring in the new year. Jason looked excited. That sounds awesome. Who all is going? Oh, lots of people, Kimberly replied. We want it to be the event of the season. My heart lifted at the thought of a family gathering. New Year's had been difficult for me since Jack passed, and the idea of spending it surrounded by loved ones instead of alone with memories was appealing. I made a mental note to ask Andrew about it when we had a moment alone. A week later, I invited Andrew for coffee, hoping to reconnect one-on-one. We met at our favorite local cafe, and for a while, It felt like old times as we caught up on simple things. Finally, I brought up the trip I had overheard about. "So tell me about this New Year's trip Kimberly is planning," I said, trying to sound casual. "It sounds wonderful." Andrew's expression immediately changed. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat and looked down at his coffee. "Oh, that. It's just a small getaway with some friends." Before he could continue, my phone rang. It was Kimberly, asking if Andrew was with me, because she needed him for something urgent. When he stepped outside to talk to her, I felt a familiar, sinking feeling. When Andrew returned, Kimberly was with him, as if she had been waiting nearby. She slid into the seat beside him. "Viola, were you asking about the New Year's trip?" she asked with a tight smile. "It's mostly for couples, you know, young couples. Just a romantic getaway to start the year right." "I understand," I said, swallowing my disappointment. "That sounds lovely for you all." "We knew you wouldn't want to be around all that drinking and loud music anyway," Kimberly added with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes. A few days later, while checking Facebook, I noticed my niece had posted about being so excited for the big New Year's bash in Vermont. The comments revealed that several family members were going, including some who were decidedly not couples. My brother and his wife were bringing their college-aged children. My cousin was going with his new girlfriend. And most tellingly, one of Kimberly's single friends commented, "Can't wait. Thanks for including me." The couple's excuse was clearly a lie. When I gently tried to discuss this with Andrew during our next phone call, his response left me cold. "Mom, you're being too sensitive again," he sighed. "Kimberly is just trying to build her own traditions. It's important for us as a young couple to establish our own thing, you know." "But it seems like everyone is included in this own thing, except me," I said quietly. "That's not fair, Mom. Look, I need to go. We'll talk about this another time, okay?" But we never did. I retreated, not wanting to be labeled as the difficult mother-in-law who couldn't let her son live his own life. Yet each exclusion cut deeper than the last, especially when I realized they weren't about giving the young couple space, but about Kimberly systematically removing me from family events. Mid-December, I hosted a small holiday gathering at my house. Andrew and Kimberly attended, though they arrived late and mentioned several times that they could only stay for an hour due to another commitment. While I was in the kitchen preparing coffee, Kimberly and her friend Jessica sat at the nearby dining table, unaware that I could hear every word. "The cabin is absolutely perfect," Kimberly was saying excitedly. 8 bedrooms, a massive stone fireplace, floor-to-ceiling windows with mountain views. It cost a fortune, but my parents helped, and everyone is chipping in. "How many people are going?" Jessica asked. "Around 20, Kimberly replied. "My parents, my brother and his wife, my grandparents, since they rarely travel anymore, plus some of my college friends. Andrew's cousins are coming too, and his Uncle Bill. It's going to be amazing." "What about Andrew's mom?" Jessica asked. "Is she coming too?" There was a pause before Kimberly responded, her voice dropping slightly. "God, no. Can you imagine she'd want to play board games while we're trying to have fun? Besides, she'd probably go to bed at 9 and complain about the noise." They laughed, and I stood frozen in the kitchen coffee pot in hand, a burning sensation spreading through my chest. This wasn't about space limitations or it being a couple's trip. This was about Kimberly not wanting me there, and apparently my own son agreeing with her. When I returned to the dining room with the coffee, I couldn't help myself. I had to know the truth. "Kimberly," I said as calmly as I could, "I couldn't help but overhear about your New Year's trip. It sounds lovely. Is there room for one more? I'd be happy to contribute to the cost." Kimberly's smile vanished, replaced by a cold stare. "There's not enough space for you, Viola. It's for young people anyway. You wouldn't enjoy it." Just then, Andrew walked in. He must have seen the hurt on my face and heard Kimberly's words. But his response shattered what remained of my heart. "Mom, Kimberly put a lot of effort into organizing this. Let's not make it uncomfortable, okay?" He didn't defend me. He didn't question why his wife was excluding his mother from a family gathering. He simply reinforced that I wasn't welcome. I nodded and excused myself to check on the dessert, spending several minutes in the kitchen regaining my composure. When I returned, the conversation had moved on as if nothing had happened. Christmas came, and while Andrew and Kimberly did attend dinner at my house, the celebration felt hollow. Andrew's gift to me was a generic scented candle set that still had the clearance sticker partially visible on the bottom. Kimberly gave me a self-help book titled Finding Purpose in Your Senior Years. Throughout the evening, Andrew was distracted, checking his phone constantly, while Kimberly dominated conversations, interrupting whenever I tried to reminisce about past Christmases or family traditions. As they were leaving, Andrew mentioned casually, "We're heading up to Vermont on the 28th, so we probably won't see you until after the new year." "I understand," I said, giving him a hug that he didn't fully return. "Have a wonderful time." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had become so irrelevant in my son's life. Had I done something wrong? Was I truly as boring and burdensome as Kimberly seemed to think? Or was this simply what happened when children grew up, established their own families, and left their parents behind? The next day, curiosity led me to look up the luxury cabin rental that Kimberly had mentioned. It wasn't hard to find with a few specific searches. What I discovered made the exclusion even more painful. The property was advertised as a sprawling 10-bedroom mountain estate, perfect for large family gatherings. 10 bedrooms, not 8. The website showed multiple living spaces, a game room, and even a separate guest apartment over the garage. There was more than enough space. I simply wasn't wanted. New Year's Eve arrived, and I found myself alone in my house. Friends had invited me to their gatherings, but I declined, not feeling up to pretending to be in a festive mood. Instead, I ordered Chinese food, opened a bottle of wine, and tried not to think about what Andrew and the rest of the family were doing. But social media made that impossible. Around 8 o'clock, I gave in to temptation and opened Facebook. My feed was filled with photos from the Vermont trip. There was my brother and his family arriving at the cabin. There were my nieces and nephews having a snowball fight. There was Andrew standing with our cousins, drinks in hand, everyone laughing. I scrolled through image after image, each one a fresh wound. The cabin was enormous, rustic, luxurious, with soaring ceilings and panoramic views. One photo showed a long dining table set for at least 20 people. Another revealed a spacious living room where a large group was playing charades. Then came the photo that broke me completely, a group shot taken in front of the fireplace. There, among the many smiling faces, were two elderly people I recognized as Kimberly's grandparents. They must have been in their 80s, the woman using a walker, positioned discreetly to the side. They were beaming clearly, delighted to be included in the family celebration. Age wasn't the issue. Space wasn't the issue. I simply wasn't wanted. My son and his wife had deliberately excluded me, while including everyone else, even elderly relatives, who likely required special accommodations. I set down my phone and burst into tears, great heaving sobs that I had been holding back for months, perhaps years. The pain of rejection, of being erased from my own family, was overwhelming. I cried for the relationship I used to have with Andrew, for the love that seemed to have faded, for my own loneliness. The ringing of my phone eventually pulled me from my grief. It was Patricia, my best friend since college days. "Happy New Year's Eve, Vi," she said cheerfully. "Just checking in on you. How are you holding up?" Something about her genuine concern broke the dam of my silence. I told her everything, my words tumbling out between renewed tears. The systematic exclusion, the not enough space lie. The photos showing Kimberly's grandparents at the very event I was told was for young people. "Those manipulative, cruel people," Patricia said when I finished, her voice tight with anger. "Viola, this has gone on long enough. You've been far too accommodating, while they've treated you terribly." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "I don't want to lose Andrew completely." "Honey, you're already losing him by letting them treat you this way," Patricia said gently. "Sometimes you need to stand up for yourself to earn respect. And by the way, my nephew Dylan works for that luxury cabin rental company. I know exactly which property they're in, and it absolutely has more than enough space. It sleeps 24 people comfortably." That confirmation of the deliberate lie hit me hard, but it also sparked something new inside me. A clarity, a resolve. "You're right," I said, wiping my tears. "I've been so afraid of being the difficult mother-in-law that I've allowed myself to be treated like I don't matter. But I do matter. I deserved better than this." As we talked, Patricia mentioned seeing more photos posted by one of Kimberly's friends. I checked and found a series of images showing a New Year's Eve party in full swing. And there, among the revelers, was Kimberly's twice-divorced aunt, Sylvia, a woman who Andrew had openly complained about for years, calling her toxic and exhausting. Yet, Sylvia was welcome. I was not. In that moment, something shifted within me. The hurt transformed into determination. I wouldn't cause a scene. I wouldn't confront them angrily. But I would no longer accept being treated as an afterthought while still being expected to provide financial and emotional support whenever it was convenient for them. As the clock struck midnight, and fireworks exploded outside my window, I made a resolution that would change everything. The next morning, New Year's Day, I didn't waste any time. While most people were sleeping off their celebrations, I was making calls. The first was to Harold, my financial advisor of 20 years. "Happy New Year, Viola," he said warmly. "What can I do for you on this holiday?" "I need some information, Harold," I said. "Did Andrew contact you recently about accessing funds for a house down payment?" There was a slight pause. "Yes, he did. He mentioned you had promised to help with $50,000 toward their new home. He was asking about the best way to transfer the funds." I wasn't surprised, but the confirmation still stung. Andrew and Kimberly had been planning to use my money while excluding me from their lives. "Has the transfer been initiated?" I asked. "No, nothing has been moved yet. We were waiting for your direct authorization, of course." "Good," I said, "because I've changed my plans for those funds." I explained what I wanted to do instead, and Harold, always professional, didn't comment on my personal reasons, but provided the guidance I needed. After hanging up, I sat with my thoughts remembering the conversation from 3 weeks earlier when Andrew and Kimberly had shown me pictures of the house they wanted to buy, a beautiful colonial in an upscale neighborhood. "It's at the very top of our budget," Andrew had explained. "But with the 50,000 you promised to help with, we can make it work." "We've already started the pre-approval process," Kimberly had added confidently. "We just need to finalize everything after the holidays." They had spoken as if my contribution was a foregone conclusion, while simultaneously planning to exclude me from their lives. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became that my decision was right. Over the next few days, I researched extensively, made more calls, and met with my lawyer to establish the groundwork for what would become the Jack and Viola Wilson Education Fund, a scholarship foundation to help deserving students from underprivileged backgrounds attend college. Jack had been the first in his family to get a degree, and education had been central to both our careers. It felt right to create a legacy that would honor his memory and help others. Each step I took in establishing the foundation brought a sense of purpose and healing I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just about teaching my son and daughter-in-law a lesson. It was about reclaiming my own agency and creating something meaningful. I deliberately didn't tell Andrew or Kimberly about my decision. They were still in Vermont posting photos of ski trips and lavish meals, completely unaware that anything had changed. On January 5th, the day after they returned home, Andrew called me. "Mom, we need to meet with the mortgage broker on Monday to finalize everything. Can you join us? They'll need to document the gift funds for the down payment." "I'd be happy to meet," I said calmly. "Why don't we have dinner tomorrow night and discuss it? My treat." "Great," Andrew replied, sounding relieved. "Kimberly was just asking about this. We'll see you at 6, the steakhouse on Newberry Street." I agreed and spent the next day preparing myself emotionally for what would surely be a difficult conversation. I chose my outfit carefully, a tailored blue dress that Jack had always said brought out my eyes, and practiced what I would say in the mirror, determined to remain composed no matter what. The restaurant was busy when I arrived, but Andrew and Kimberly were already seated at a quiet corner table. Kimberly, impeccably dressed as always, barely waited for me to sit down before launching into conversation. Viola, we've got great news. The sellers accepted our offer on the house, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. We just need to finalize the financing, which is where you come in. We've already told our designer about the space, and she has some amazing ideas for the renovation we want to do right away. Andrew at least had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable at her directness. We really appreciate your help with this, Mom. It means a lot to us. I took a sip of water, gathered my thoughts, and then spoke as calmly as I could. I've made a decision about that money, actually. I've established an education foundation in Dad's and my name. The funds will go toward scholarships for students who otherwise couldn't afford college. The silence that followed was deafening. Kimberly's smile froze, then slowly morphed into disbelief. Andrew's mouth actually fell open. What? Kimberly finally managed. The Jack and Viola Wilson Education Fund. I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. We'll award the first scholarships this spring. You can't be serious, Kimberly said, her voice rising. You promised that money to us. We've already started the purchasing process. The down payment is due next week. Andrew leaned forward, confusion and hurt in his eyes. Mom, we're counting on you. This is our dream home. We've talked about this for months. Yes, we have, I agreed. Just like I'm sure you talked about the New Year's trip for months. The one I wasn't welcome to join because there supposedly wasn't enough space for me, and it was just for young people anyway. Andrew's expression changed, a flicker of guilt crossing his face. Kimberly's cheeks flushed red. I reached for my phone, pulled up the photos I had saved, and turned the screen toward them. I saw all the pictures. 20 people at a 10-bedroom luxury cabin, including Kimberly's grandparents, who must be at least 80. Funny how there was space for them, but not for me. That's different, Kimberly said defensively. My grandparents are family. And what am I? I asked quietly. Andrew at least had the decency to look ashamed. Mom, we should have invited you. I'm sorry. No, you're not, Kimberly snapped. You're just sorry we got caught. She turned to me, her composure cracking. Look, Viola, the truth is, we shouldn't have to include you in everything. Just because you're lonely. We have our own lives. We can't always be worrying about your feelings. The raw honesty was almost refreshing, after months of polite excuses. Andrew stared at his wife in shock, clearly unused to hearing her speak so bluntly about his mother. Kimberly, he said, his voice low. What are you saying? I'm saying what we both know is true, she replied. Your mother expects to be included in everything, and it's exhausting. Yes, we told her there wasn't enough space at the cabin. So what? Sometimes white lies are necessary. Andrew turned to me, then back to Kimberly. You told me you had already invited Mom, and she declined because she didn't want to be around so many people. Now, it was my turn to be shocked. I was never invited, Andrew. Kimberly specifically told me there wasn't space for me, and it was for young people anyway. That's ridiculous, Andrew said, turning to Kimberly. The cabin sleeps 24. We had empty bedrooms. Kimberly's mask slipped completely. Fine, I didn't want her there, okay? She's always judging me, always bringing up how things used to be, always trying to make you feel guilty for having a life separate from her. I wanted one holiday without dealing with that. The restaurant suddenly felt very quiet, though I'm sure other diners were still talking. Andrew looked between us, confusion giving way to understanding, then anger. You've been deliberately excluding my mother from family events. For how long? Kimberly rolled her eyes. Don't act surprised. You've gone along with it every time. Because you told me Mom was declining the invitations, you said she preferred to stay home. As they argued, I felt a strange sense of vindication, mixed with deep sadness. My son hadn't been complicit in excluding me, at least not knowingly. But he had been blind to his wife's manipulation, had failed to question the convenient excuses or check with me directly. The argument escalated until Kimberly stood up, grabbed her designer purse, and declared, I'm not doing this here. If you want to choose your mother over your wife, go ahead. She stormed out, leaving Andrew and me in uncomfortable silence. After a moment, he rubbed his hand across his face and looked at me with genuine remorse. Mom, I had no idea. I swear. Kimberly always told me you were invited, but chose not to come. And you never thought to ask me directly, I said softly. Never wondered why I was suddenly avoiding family gatherings after Dad died, when I needed family most. He looked down at his hands. I believed what I wanted to believe, I guess. It was easier than facing the possibility that something was wrong. He paused, then asked, So the money for the house is going to help deserving students, I confirmed. I'm sorry if that complicates things for you, but I need to make decisions based on how I'm treated, not just what's expected of me. Andrew nodded slowly. I understand. I don't know what to do about the house, but that's not your problem to solve. He reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so sorry, Mom. I've really messed up. I promise I'm going to make this right somehow. As he left to find Kimberly, I sat alone finishing my glass of wine, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. There was sadness for the pain this would cause, but also a sense of profound relief. The truth was finally out, and with it came the possibility of rebuilding our relationship on more honest ground. Within days, the story had spread through the family. I received calls from relatives who had been at the Vermont trip, all claiming they had no idea I had been deliberately excluded. My brother was particularly upset, saying he had specifically asked Andrew if I was coming and had been told I wasn't feeling up to it. The ripple effects were significant. Andrew and Kimberly's perfect image now had cracks that everyone could see, and the family's sympathy largely fell on my side. The weeks that followed were transformative. Andrew began calling me regularly, often stopping by after work without Kimberly. During these visits, he opened up about problems in their marriage that had been brewing for some time. She's always been controlling, he admitted during one conversation. But I didn't see how much she was isolating me from family until now. We've started seeing a marriage counselor, but I don't know if things will work out. I offered what wisdom I could without taking sides. Marriage takes work from both people, Andrew. If you both want it enough, you can find a way forward. But you can't be the only one compromising. Meanwhile, I threw myself into establishing the Education Foundation, working with local high schools to identify potential scholarship recipients gave me a renewed sense of purpose. I assembled a small board of trustees, including Patricia, and several former colleagues from my days as a principal. In May, we held our first scholarship award ceremony. 5 deserving students received funds that would help them attend college without crippling debt. Seeing their faces and those of their proud parents filled me with joy. Jack would have loved this legacy. To my surprise, Andrew attended the ceremony. He sat quietly in the back, but approached me afterward with tears in his eyes. "What you've created here is incredible, Mom," he said. "Watching you on stage, seeing the difference you're making in these kids' lives. I've never been more proud to be your son." His words healed something in me that had been broken for a long time. We hugged and I felt the genuine warmth and connection that had been missing for years. Gradually, Andrew and I rebuilt our relationship on new, healthier terms. He made efforts to include me in his life while respecting my independence. We revived our Sunday pancake tradition, sometimes with him coming to my house, other times with me visiting him. Kimberly was slower to come around. The loss of the down payment money meant they had to buy a smaller house than they had hoped for, which she initially resented deeply. But the marriage counseling seemed to be helping her recognize her controlling behavior. 3 months after our confrontation at the restaurant, Kimberly asked to meet me for coffee alone. She was more subdued than I had ever seen her. "I owe you an apology, Viola," she said, looking directly at me for perhaps the first time. "What I did was wrong. I was insecure about my place in Andrew's life and jealous of his relationship with you. Instead of dealing with those feelings, I tried to push you out. I'm working on that in therapy now." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it felt sincere. I accepted it graciously while maintaining the boundaries I had established. We would probably never be close, but we could be respectful. As the holidays approached again, things had shifted dramatically. Andrew and Kimberly hosted Thanksgiving in their new, more modest home. I was invited, of course, and so were other family members. The atmosphere was relaxed and genuine, without the tension that had marked previous gatherings. For New Year's, they planned a small local celebration and specifically asked if I would join them. It was a healing moment to accept that invitation, knowing it came from a place of genuine inclusion rather than obligation. The Scholarship Foundation continued to grow, becoming far more rewarding than I could have imagined. I made new friends through the work connected with educators across the state and found purpose in creating opportunities for deserving students. What had begun as a reaction to being excluded had blossomed into a fulfilling new chapter of my life. The experience taught me so much about self-respect in all relationships, even family ones. By standing up for myself, I hadn't destroyed my relationship with Andrew as I had feared. Instead, I had strengthened it by demanding honesty and mutual respect. Our connection now was more authentic than it had been in years. I also learned that giving to others should always come from love, not obligation or expectation. The joy I found in helping scholarship recipients came from knowing my gift was freely given, not extracted through manipulation or guilt. Perhaps most importantly, I discovered that happiness and purpose can take unexpected forms. The pain of exclusion led me to create something meaningful that extended far beyond my own family circle. My world expanded rather than contracted, bringing new friendships, challenges, and rewards I never would have experienced otherwise. Now, when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who knows her worth and refuses to accept less than she deserves. A woman who can love deeply without losing herself. A woman who understands that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries that teach others how to treat you. Has someone ever made you feel unwelcome or excluded, especially within your own family? Share your experience in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you handled it. And if you appreciated this story about standing up for yourself while still choosing compassion, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to be reminded of their own worth. Remember, you deserve to be valued for exactly who you are at every stage of life. Thank you for listening to my story.